Welcome back, and today I'm gonna talk about my Senate prediction for the month of August. So let's start. There we go. So let's start off for the most interesting states. So I'm gonna start for the race that just got a major change for Missouri. I am now in Wikipedia, and Schmidt defeated Greitens in the GOP primary that just happened on Tuesday. So he will face Schmidt will face Valentine, the Democrat nominee. And now for the polling. It's easily going to be a safe state for the GOP since Greitens was the one with the baggage, and with Schmidt, it's an easy win for the GOP. And let's talk about some other races. So briefly, for Utah, Mike Lee will face Democrat-backed Evan McMullin, who is an anti-Trump Republican but is backed by the Democrats in a smart strategy by the Democrats, and I expect Mike Lee still will win here by a margin of 18 to 20%. And for Iowa, I expect Chuck Grassley to easily win here to a similar margin to Utah, but it could even be higher depending on a lot of things with economy. And yeah, that's about it for the safe races. So for the likely races, let's start. And let's start with the likely races with Florida. So this Senate race will likely not be competitive in this midterm, but I know a lot of you live here, so Marco Rubio who is the incumbent, will be the Republican nominee, while for the Democrats, it's almost surely going to be Val Demings that will take the spot and try to defeat Marco Rubio. And for the polling, I am now in Wikipedia, by the way. Most people have this either as lean or likely for the GOP, and I tend to agree with those ratings. And in my opinion, Marco Rubio easily wins here by, it depends on the economy and if there's a major recession, but I'm going to say Marco Rubio wins here by a margin of 9 to 11%. And yeah, let's go to another likely race for the race in Colorado. So it's going to be Michael Bennet, the incumbent Democrat, against Republican Joe O'Dea. And if you don't know, Colorado's a big state for the Democrats in this era, and most people and pollsters like Political, RCP, Fox News, and CNN, and all those sort of pollsters have this either as a likely or a lean state for the Democrats, and I also agree with that. I am skeptical on what the margin will be. I still see Michael Bennet winning here by a likely margin of 6 to 8% or 5 to 7%. It could either be within those numbers. And now let's just, let's go to Ohio. So Ohio is one of my favorite states to talk about. So since both parties nominated quite good electable candidates that have ran decent campaigns, so it's JD Vance who's trying to win in this open seat left by Rob Portman, and he is facing Tim Ryan, the Democrat nominee. And let's just go down to the bottom to the polling. The most recent polling, and there we go. So a lot more people are actually putting this as a lean state, or I should say a lean race, which could actually happen in my opinion. If JD Vance fumbles the ball slightly, then this could weirdly become a lean race because of how, I'd say, rhetoric wise, Tim Ryan has done well at copying Joe Manchin's centrist Democrat vibes, but because of the economy, I'm going to put this as a likely state, but it could either be, as I've said, like with Colorado, it could either be 6 to 8% or maybe even 5 to 7%, which would be a win, in my opinion, for Tim Ryan, since if he's able to get Ohio to vote to the left of 2020, that's a good win for him, but still he loses by at least 5%. And now for the race in Washington. So this was another state that had a primary on Tuesday. And I'm back to Wikipedia, so for the Washington Senate race, it's going to be Patty Murray against Stephanie Smiley, a decent nominee from the looks of it by the Republican Party. And I'm going to try to see if there's any more recent polling by pollsters, and there's not that much, but you can see Patty Murray is either in the late 40s or early 50s, which is not that great for a incumbent, especially during a midterm where the economy is looking quite iffy. And this means the undecided voters will likely be stronger for the GOP. And what I think will happen is that I don't think it's going to drop down to lean just yet. Maybe come October I will drop it to that margin, but I don't think that's a good idea yet, and it just doesn't make sense. But I still see Patty Murray only winning here by a margin, as I've said before, just like Colorado and Ohio. These states are probably going to vote quite similar in the Senate election, so 6 to 8% or 5 to 7%. Depends on a whole lot of issues, but that's probably where you're going to see these states vote like come November. And now for the other two races, let's go to the race in Wisconsin. I think this race has really gotten a lot of news recently, so the race will likely be Ron Johnson, the Republican incumbent, against the Democrats, who will almost certainly be Mandela Barnes, since almost everyone else who were major candidates by the Democrats have dropped. The problem with Mandela Barnes is that he probably was one of the weakest ones in the bunch by the major candidates, in my opinion, which is not looking good, especially with this midterm looking like a red wave for the GOP due to the incumbent party having less motivated voters in the midterms as they usually happen. And what I think will happen is that, in my opinion, if someone else was the Democrat nominee, like Sarah or, I don't know, Tom Nelson, this probably would be probably like a lean race of around 1 to 3%, or 2 to 4% for the GOP. But with Mandela Barnes, it's not gonna look well for him in this race in 2022. And I see Ron Johnson easily winning re-election by 5 to 7%, if not more. In all honesty, Ron Johnson probably will stay as a senator for at least one more term. And for the race in North Carolina, this is another seat which will be left by incumbent Richard Burr, who is going to retire. So the Republican nominee is Ted Budd, representative, and Cherry Beasley, who was the former Supreme Court Justice in the state of North Carolina, of course. And for the polling, let's just go to the polling and predictions. Most people have this as a lean R race, Fox News, Politico, Cook Political Report, and 538. But what I think will happen is that due to the poor economy, the Republicans will get some form of a boost from angry voters probably. So I see Ted Budd easily winning here by same margin as Wisconsin, 5 to 7%. So at the moment, the Republicans have 49 seats against the Democrats' 46 seats. And let's start off for the first lean state. So for the state and the race in Nevada. So for the Senate race in Nevada, it's going to be incumbent Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto against Adam Laxalt, the Republican nominee, who was the former Nevada Attorney General. So let's go down in Wikipedia to the polling. As I've said before, the predictions, it's really most people and polling firms have this as a toss-up around that margin. But the fact that this is a toss-up in a state that voted for Democrats back in 2020, it's not looking good in that regard, because it depends on the Latino vote too. Because if the Latino vote fails the Democrats like the same way that they have trended to the right from 2016 to 2020, then this will probably be an easy one for Adam Laxalt. It's really neck and neck, but for my prediction in this race, I think that this will probably be one of the easiest flips for the GOP, and they flip the Senate seat in Nevada, and they win here by a lean margin of 1 to 3% quite easily. And the GOP did quite well with their nominees in this state. So let's go to the other lean states. So let's just go and talk about the race in New Hampshire. Let's just talk about that race. So in this state, Maggie Hassan, the Democrat incumbent, she is at a good spot at the moment. This could have easily been a GOP flip. They had a lot of candidates that were decent candidates. We're talking about Governor Sununu, the Republican governor, Kelly Ayotte, the former senator from this state. You also had other people like Scott Brown, who would have been a great nominee by the GOP, but really none of them wanted to run for Senate, which, even though it's a red wave, most likely will be a red wave year. So the polling firms have this either as a tilt margin for the Democrats or a lean margin for the Democrats. Oh wait, before I forget, the Republican nominee, I almost forgot, is probably going to be Chuck Norris, who was, or I should say, I think, yeah, he still is the president of the New Hampshire Senate. So yeah, he probably will get the nomination unless Trump endorses someone else. I don't see Chuck Norris doing well unless the economy goes 2008 style down the bin, but at the moment I see Maggie Hassan. She's been campaigning quite well too, which is why I put this race as a lean race for the Democrats barely. I think this could easily be a tilt race, but for the moment I'm going to have this as a close win for the Democrats by a 1.5% win for them. And that's it for the lean races, so let's just go to the tilt races. And for the first tilt race, let's go to Arizona. Arizona was another state that had primaries on the 2nd of August, and we saw Mark Kelly easily won his party nomination, since he is the incumbent senator who won in the 2020 special election, don't forget. And now in 2022, he's gonna face Blake Masters, the Republican nominee. And for the polling, by the way, we're back to Wikipedia, so the predictions and the endorsements and all that sort of stuff, it's really a toss-up. Most people have it as that. And the polling, Mark Kelly's at 49%, 50 at most, or yeah. And what I think will happen is Blake Masters, the Republican nominee, mostly because of the midterm favoring the GOP, will likely win here by a high tilt margin of 0.75%. If I had to make a guess, I think the GOP wins this Senate race and flips this seat. And now for the election in Georgia. For the race in Georgia, Raphael Warnock, the incumbent Democrat, will face Herschel Walker, the Republican. And Raphael Warnock won in the 2020 special election. Kind of similar to what Mark Kelly did, but yeah, so in 2022, it's not looking too great, but for good news for Warnock is that he will debate Herschel, and Warnock is known for his debating skills, and the polling is really neck and neck over and over again. So what I think will happen is that, but at the moment, because of the red wave and the economy looking not too great, I do reckon that Herschel Walker does in fact win here by a tilt margin. I got no idea by how much. It's really one of the most volatile races in this cycle. And now for one of the closest states, aka a true toss-up in my opinion, for the race in Pennsylvania. If you don't know yet, Pat Toomey, the incumbent Republican, will not seek re-election, which is why this state is by far one of the most important states for both parties to win in 2022. And the GOP nominated Dr. Oz, yes, the former TV star, against Lieutenant Governor of the state and Democrat, of course, John Fetterman. And things are looking better for Democrats. It is still neck and neck, and anything could happen, and both candidates cannot make a gaffe at this state of the race, and most have this either as a toss-up lean D or tilt R, but there's really a true toss-up by all means in this prediction for August. And let's go see. In Wikipedia, it says John Fetterman has the lead, but the margin of other people and undecided voters are still quite big, which might go for Dr. Oz come November. And in my prediction, I truly believe this will be a hard state for the Republicans if Dr. Oz is not getting the momentum needed to win. The working class voters will decide, and if John Fetterman's populism is still as good as it is right now, then I do reckon and think John Fetterman would be barely able to win here by a margin of 0.25%. But things could easily change if Dr. Oz is able to regain his momentum. But for now, for this prediction in August, I have the Democrats winning in Pennsylvania. And for my final map, the Republicans won with 52 seats against the Democrats' 48 seats. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.